The doll came in a plain wooden crate, shipped with no return address. Inside, wrapped in faded lace, was a porcelain figure with stitches crawling across its face, one eyeglass, the other. Unmistakably human dot at first, the new owner, a girl named Mara, thought it was just another heirloom. But the doll never stayed where she left it. In the morning, it sat in the rocking chair. By nightfall, it was at her sewing desk, clutching a needle in its tiny hand. When she turned her back, she swore she heard the seams on its face tighten. Flesh beneath porcelain, porcelain beneath flesh. One night, Mara woke to the sound of threads pulling through skin. The doll was standing over her, sewing something unseen. When she looked closer, she realized the stitches were pulling across her own wrist. Her veins threading into porcelain dot by morning, Mara was at the kitchen table, smiling faintly. But her eyes no longer matched. One was glass, cold and perfect. The other was her own. And the doll? It now wore the rest of her face like a mask, smiling back. The doll was a gift from an old, reclusive aunt, a grotesque thing with wide glass eyes that seemed to follow you, and a permanent, cruel smile painted on its porcelain face. It was dressed in a tattered crimson dress, and its tiny hands were clasped as if in prayer, though it looked more like it was plotting. The doll's name, according to the faded tag on its wrist, was Lilith Dot from the moment it arrived. A cold dread settled over the house. At first, it was the small things. The lights would flicker whenever you walked past Lilith. Unexplained scratching sounds would echo from the walls, and the air would grow heavy and still, as if holding its breath. The family, a mother, father, and a young daughter named Clara, tried to ignore it, dismissing it as the house settling or their imaginations. But then Lilith began to move. Clara would leave the doll propped on her bed, only to find it later sitting on the floor, its head cocked at an unnatural angle. One morning, Mother found Lilith in the kitchen, its tiny hands grasping a sharpened knife. A dark, oily substance seemed to be seeping from its button eyes, leaving a trail of black tears on its painted cheeks. One night, the father, fed up with the unsettling presence, decided to get rid of the doll. He took it outside, intending to throw it into a bonfire he had built in the backyard. As he held Lilith over the flames, the doll began to vibrate violently. A low, guttural whisper, not unlike a swarm of flies, emanated from it. The voice promised pain, suffering, and eternal torment if he dared to harm it. Suddenly, the bonfire flared with an unnatural intensity, a pillar of fire shooting up towards the sky. The father, terrified, dropped the doll and ran back into the house, locking the door behind him. The next morning, the doll was back on its pedestal in the living room, its smile even wider and more menacing than before. The family's torment escalated. They would hear their own voices whispering terrible things to them from empty rooms. They would see shadowy figures in the corners of their eyes, their shapes distorted and horrifying. The parents' arguments grew more frequent and vicious, fueled by an unseen, malevolent force. Lilith watched it all from its place on the mantelpiece, its glass eyes glinting with a sinister delight. Clara, a sensitive and kind-hearted girl, was the most affected. She began to have violent nightmares, waking up screaming, her body covered in unseen scratches. She told her parents that Lilith visited her in her dreams, twisting her favorite dolls into grotesque parodies of themselves and whispering cruel secrets to her. The climax came one stormy night. The family was huddled together in the living room, their nerves frayed to the breaking point. The power was out, and the only light came from the lightning flashes illuminating the room. In one blinding flash, they saw it. Lilith was not on the mantelpiece. It was standing directly in front of them, its tiny frame towering, and its shadow stretching to fill the entire room. Its head was twisted completely around, its painted smile now a gaping demonic maw. The whisper from before was now a roar, a chorus of tormented souls screaming out of the doll's mouth. The last thing they saw before the doll's shadow engulfed them was its eyes, no longer glass, but two pools of swirling demonic fire. The house was found abandoned days later, the only evidence of its occupants being the small, crimson-dressed doll sitting on the mantelpiece, its painted smile looking more satisfied than ever.